Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you are doing great and welcome to the part 4 of our Java basic series. Now in our part 3 we have learnt about classes and objects in very detailed manner, right? We also did a basic program of addition of two numbers using classes, objects and methods. Now in this class also let's only concentrate on writing a basic program but which includes a different methods. In our previous class we only used add method, right? Now let's get introduce ourselves to some new methods. Okay, let's start writing the code. Now before writing code, what are the two mandatory things in Java? One is default class, another thing is main method, right? So that let's create them first. Now, public class demo. Here the class name can be anything. I'm giving it as demo. Inside it we have a main method, right? It's public static void main, and we have string args. This is the Java basic structure. In every Java code, it is mandatory. Now, I want to introduce two the new methods, right? In our previous class, we only used add method, but I want to introduce here subtraction, multiplication, division, and remainder methods. Now, for getting that methods, even we can do all those calculations inside the main method by declaring variables. But what we learned in the previous class, it's better to do them by creating new methods, right? So that let's get that. For that, I'm going to create a class keyword followed by the class name. This is how we create a class. Okay, inside it I'm creating a variable. What I said, while creating variable, it's better to create it as private. So that private int result. It's good, right? Now I'm going to create methods. First I'm going to create add method which adds the two numbers, right? We also did it in previous class. We are accepting two things because we are adding two numbers. Okay, now the result will be plus n2. We have to print this result, right? Now we have to return it because we used int here. Let's return the result. Okay, now we have to use this method inside our main method because our Java code starts executing from the main method. How to use it main method? Before using, we have to create an object for this calculator class. Calculator c is equal to new calculator of. Okay, now how to call that method? Using object specifier c dot add of, and we have to pass what we are adding. Suppose I'm adding 1 comma 7 to anything, right? Okay. Now let's save it. Let's run it. How to run it? Before we have to compile it. It's java c space file name dot java and java space file name. You can get right. 1 plus 77 is 78. Now let's create some more methods. Even now I want to subtract two numbers, right? First let's create a method that is public int. I'm giving subtract as again shortcut. Okay, int n1 comma int n2. Okay, now what will be the result? We are doing subtraction, right? So that n1 minus n2, and we have to print that, to print the result, and we have to return it. Yes, now simple, we already created an object for it. No need to create another time because the sub and add both are in calculator class. For calculator we already created the object. Okay, now it's time to call the method of sub. C dot sub of, I want to subtract 9 and 1. Let's save it. Let's run it. Let's see what will be the result. It's good, right? 9 minus 1 is 8. Now let's create another method which will multiply. Public int mul int n2. Okay, what will be the result? We are doing multiplication, right? So that it's n1 into n2. Now let's print it. Let's print the result and let's return it. Okay, we have written it right now. Now we have written it, so that we have to use it here. C dot mallof. I want to add 12 comma. Okay, in many numbers I'm giving as 12 comma 10. Now let's save it. Let's see where it's working fine or not. Yes, it's working fine, right? 12 into 10 is 220. Now let's create another method for division. In division, we need to add a test case. Okay. Now, in division, we need to add some test case. What is the test case? Now, when adding two numbers, if any one is 0, there is no problem, right? For suppose we are adding 2 plus 0, there is no problem, right? For suppose in subtraction, we are doing if 2 minus 0, there is no problem. Okay. In multiplication, if we are doing 2 into 0, there is no problem. But in division, when we are doing 2 by 0, it will be error, right? Because anything divided by 0 is undefined. So that we need to validate the case. How to validate it? When the denominator is 0, means when the n2 is 0, we need to throw an error. Okay, let's throw it, so that we need to check first. If means if we are checking whether n2 is 0 or not. Let's say if n2 is 0, means we are dividing n1 by n2, right? For suppose n1 is 9 and n2 is 0. When we are dividing 9 by 0, it is undefined, right? So that we need to check first whether n2 is 0 or not. So that if n2 is 0, let's say system.out.println error over cannot divide by 0. Okay, now so it's giving some error, right? Oh, sorry, it's not equal to, it's double equal to. Okay, else what we have to do else? The same thing, result is equal to n1 by n2. Let's print it, system.out.println the result, and we have to return it, right? Let's return result. Okay, now let's check whether it is working fine or not. Let's call that method c.div. Let me do 10 comma 2. Let's see what will be the result here. Let's compile it, let's run it, and what we are getting, 10 by 2 is 5, right? Now we have added sub test case, right? If n2 double equal to 0, we should give an error message. Let's say n2 is 0 here. I'm giving n2 as 0. Let's save it and let's run it. Now you can see, right, error cannot divided by 0. So that we have added a test case where not dividing by 0. This is how we do it. Okay, now let's create a last method. Let's create another method which is reminder. What is reminder? Reminder is nothing but, for suppose we are dividing 10 with 2. What will the remainder? It will be 0, right? The quotient will be 5, but the remainder will be 0. Now how to calculate that remainder? Okay, public class dem int n1 comma int n2. Okay, now I think you are confusing, right? In every method we are using int n1 n2, int n1 n2, n1 n2, right? There is no problem if we use the same name of variables in different methods, because for suppose in int add, public int add, we are using this n1 and n2, right? This will only works in this, inside this method only. Okay, if we use this outside the method, they will not work. So that for every method we can use the same variable names. Now let's calculate remainder. How to calculate remainder? Result is equal to, for this also we have to add this test case, so that Let's simply copy it. Because we are doing division, right? Let's paste it. Okay. Now in else case, how to find it? Result is equal to n1 percentile n2. This is how we calculate remainder. Okay. Now let's print it. System.out.println result. Return it. Return result. Okay. Let's add it here. C dot rem of, sorry, what happened? Let's C dot rem of, let's give 98 comma 2. Okay, I'm giving some random numbers, don't worry. Let's save it. Let's compile it first. Now let's run it. Here you can see, right, it's giving us 0. If you do division of 98 into, the remainder will be 0, right? So that it's giving us the correct answer. Okay. Now why it's giving error cannot divide by 0? Because in division we are giving denominator as 0 and we validate the test case. Here we can throwing error, right? Error cannot divide by 0. Okay, generally we'll not only give message, we also throw error when we encounter these type of situations. Let's learn how to throw error in our further classes, don't worry. Okay, now this is the basic code of the calculator. Right, you understood, right? Now as I introduced you to the reminder, I also want to uh, introduce to the new code, that is nothing but how to check whether the number is even or odd. Okay, public just demo, same thing, public static void main string args. Okay, now let's create a class. Class name will be check because we are checking whether the number is even or odd. Okay, now let's create a variable here. Let's say it is result. The variable name can be anything. I am giving it as result here. Okay, now let's create a method here. Public int. Let's keep the method name as, okay. Let's keep as evoid because we are checking whether number is even or odd. Okay, then we are passing only one number here. Why? Because we are only checking whether given number is even or odd. Now how to check it? How to check it means result is equal to, first I am doing n percentile 2. Okay, I am doing n percentile 2. Why I am doing n percentile 2 means, for suppose the number is 2, the number is 4. What is 4 percentile 2? It will be 0, right? Because 4 percentile 2 is a remainder. Okay, now again 6 percentile 2 is 0 again. Means using any n, if we got the remainder as 0, it is even number, right? If you do calculations in your notebook, if you take n as 4, 4 percentile 2 is 0, 6 percentile 2 is 0, 8 percentile 2 is 0, 10 percentile 2 is 0. Means in place of n, if we keep even number percentile 2, any number gives us 0. So that we got condition, right? Even number percentile 2 is 0. So that we need to check that. If result double equal to 0. Okay, if result double equal to 0, what should we print? System.out.println should print it as even. Okay, and else what we need to print? System.out.println it is odd. This is how we create a even or odd, right? Now let's return it. Let's return result. Okay, why it's giving error? Byte expected, what happened? Sorry, we should not return it outside the method. I return it's outside the method, we should return it inside the method. Okay, return result. Now let's create an object for the class what we have created. What's the class name here? Check, right? Check C is equal to check off. Okay, now we need to call this method C dot evolve. Let's pass number as 7 here. Okay, let's pass 7. 7 is odd number, right? Now let's save it. Let's run it. Let's compile it first. Let's run it. Now you can see the result, right? It's odd because 7 is the odd number. Now let's change the number. Let's give as 10. Now let's save it again. Let's compile it and let's run it. It is even, right? Now this is how we can check a number is even or odd using classes, objects and methods. Now I hope by this class you are good with classes, objects and methods. From our upcoming classes, let's introduce ourselves to the new concepts in Java. Okay, thank you.